Realizing that my own home was under attack, I knew I had to get there as soon as possible. Once I got altitude, I folded my wings back and I dove in as fast as I could. I could see the flashes coming from multiple muzzles, and I pulled in my arms and legs, turning me into the meanest missile you've ever known. The light of the moon was enough that I could see each of the people firing at the farm. Now, to be clear, they were not just firing into the house. In fact, they were firing into the wood line next to the house. One of them even fired a grenade into a cluster of trees, making them burst apart. It would have been fun to watch if it wasn't for the high pitched feline and truly female scream that came from that area. My heart dropped to my tail at the realization of what these people were trying to do. Using gravity to speed me up, I locked onto the closest one. As I got closer, I could see that the lizard girls had caught up to me and was thinking the same thing. She was focused. I figured I would leave her this one and have to adjust my flight to the one on the other side of him. I still needed to get there faster. With about 500 meters to cross and hearing the cries of the kids along with the females, I would have gladly shoved a rocket up my ass to get me there just a little bit faster. I could hear them yelling to each other. The one in the middle was giving orders to split apart and flank the house from both sides. This didn't make much sense, as it brings in the possibility of friendly crossfire. They must be desperate, and that will make them very dangerous. Closer and closer as I could see my target begin to move. I could see military gear and weapons on them as they moved forward. Are they about to pick up a fight with a Delta team or something? What the hell is going on? After a few seconds, and I will be on them, I can see a few of them have night vision on as they walk, but not all of them. I see the one closest to me. Is he wearing an old LBE? What? Flying just over his head, I could have reached out and tapped him on the helmet on the way by. As I passed him, he must have noticed. I could hear him say, "What the?" right before I heard him get run into and start screaming in pain. My target must have heard this, as he turned just in time to see me crash into him, talons first. Without wasting time, I pinned him down and drove my teeth into his neck. I couldn't close on his neck because the yoke of his body armor got in the way. He thrashed and cursed as he tried desperately to get me away from him. As I let go to get a better grip, I could feel him striking randomly at my body. I raised up a little to get a better view, and that's when he reached for his pistol. Grabbing his wrist, I twisted it as hard as I could, breaking it with a crumbling crunch similar to that of a joint ripping sound. As he yelled in pain, I swung my free hand across his throat, ripping most of it out with one swing. Looking up, I could see the rest of the men in the group shooting wildly into the tall grass. Every few seconds, another one would drop, and you could hear them being torn apart by one of my group. The sounds of gunshots, ripping flesh, and cries of pain and terror echoed throughout the night. I looked down and could see the men clearly for the first time. This was no military unit. The old man had just taken out was far too old to be in service, and his gear looked like something out of a Vietnam movie. These these were militia. I didn't know where they come from, but they picked the wrong house to raid. The group attacking the farm was in complete chaos now. Some had abandoned their long guns and switched to their sidearms as they tried to run away. Those that stayed and fought found themselves being taken down one by one. One of the lizard girls jumped through the air and landed on one of them, forcing him to the ground, where she proceeded to tear him apart. One of the cat girls had her tail raised in the air as she had pulled down a militia member from the back. That one was silenced quickly, as I could see blood actually shoot up into the air, covering the area in a dense smell of fresh blood. The ones that ran suddenly stopped at the edge of the forest. From there, they could see a naked woman begging for help, her hands raised. She pleaded with them to take her with them. They talked for a few moments before saying, "Fine," and running over to her. As they reached out to take her hand, she pushed forward with an insane amount of speed and pushed them all together as her snake body wrapped them up in a matter of seconds. They didn't have time to scream as she squeezed them so tight we could hear the bones breaking from across the field. The last militia member turned to shoot at our snake. She shouldn't have turned. I jumped on her back and drove my talons into her brainstem. Her body went limp, and the fight was over. From there, a deathly silence filled the night. "Status!" I yelled into the night. There was no reply. Then I realized they had no idea what I meant, so I changed to, "Sound off! Is anybody hurt?" I could hear yelling from where the grenade had hit. We all moved over to it and found the cat couple, or at least what was left of them. I would learn later that they had been on guard that night, and the female was sent to the house to warn everybody when they noticed the group approaching. I doubt that Tom had intended for her to return. She was spotted on her way back to him, and that is when they started shooting. I had felt bad about killing that group of militia until I laid my eyes on the bodies of those two. Well, actually, I can't even truly say that. You see, she was very pregnant. Enough that I wanted to go back and kill those fuckers again just for opening up on her. I kneeled next to her and checked her myself. Though the Tom had been blown nearly in half, her injuries did not look too bad beyond the bullet hole in the leg and one grazing her shoulder. It wasn't the bullets that killed her. The concussion of the grenade had more than likely turned her internal organs into pudding, meaning that she died slow and painful. I still had to check, even though the blood dripping out of her eyes, ears, nose, and mouth gave it away. Each of us paid our respects before getting up and finishing what we started. Then again, we couldn't stop if we tried. It was the hunger. It had returned to us. We told the humans to make sure the children did not look outside for the rest of the night. They knew what was going to happen, so they made sure that all the young ones stayed in an area of the house where they just couldn't see us. Walking over to the one I killed last, I began to take off their clothing since that would do nothing but bind me up. I turned them over and noticed that it was female. Well, confirmed, actually. I nearly chuckled at the prospect of eating too many females. What would that cause me to change into? I thought, as I shoved her arm into my mouth and bit it off. Across the field, I could hear the sounds of gear being removed, flesh being torn, and bones being crunched. All except one. Raising my head to get a large piece of flesh and bone down my throat, I could see out our resident snake raising the body of the young men she had killed. Expertly using her tail, she raised it above her head, and I watched as her jaw dislocated, as her mouth and neck got as wide as her torso. With a little bit of effort, she had swallowed the body whole. I finished off the first one and continued to the next. It would take us until first light to take care of the bodies as well as collect their gear, clothes, weapons. By dawn, we had built a funeral pyre for the two that we had lost. We had to pick and choose which of the young ones could mentally handle being in a makeshift funeral, and it wasn't many. We all took turns saying a few words as we stepped back as the pyre was lit. On the way back to the farm, I was noticing our snake was moving much slower due to the bulges in her belly. I could see the sleep was starting to get to her, too. In fact, it was starting to get to us all. I was brought back awake by one of the guys asking me why I didn't take care of the felines the way I took care of the humans. We didn't have to say anything as his friends swatted him on the arm. At least one of them got it. Our services at the cabin were no longer needed. The winter was fast approaching, so we all retreated to our own residence. I had to retrieve my armor, but we left the tools for the other group to use. It looks like it's going to be another odd winter. I don't know if it will get cold and slow us, or someone will just flick a switch and winter's on. Either way, it was not time to worry about it. I just wanted to hold my girls again. That night we might have kept a few others awake with the noises we made, but I was just so happy that I still had them, especially after seeing what had happened to our female compatriots. Now I know my sleep schedule is not as regular as a normal person, not by a long shot. but I know when it's time to just pass the hell out. Something told me I had to curl up somewhere. I didn't know what it was, but I began to curl up into a tight ball. This was strange. Normally I spread out when I sleep, but I just can't get comfortable that way. Throwing a few blankets on the floor, I curled up and found myself as comfortable as possible. Boy, I'm tired. One of the dolls just threw a blanket over me. I wanted to smile at her. I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to reach out and show her how much I appreciate her. Hell, I just wish I could stay awake. And as I drift off, I wonder, after this sleep, what am I going to find?